We couldn't think of a better way to start off Season 2 than to take you behind the scenes with an author that the New Yorker magazine recently called America's favorite writer. Publishing phenomenon Nora Roberts is well known for her novels of romance and suspense, and under the pen name J.D. Robb, she also writes a series of futuristic police procedurals. Featuring Lieutenant Eve Dallas and her billionaire husband Rourke, the In Death series is a fan favorite. Let's take a look into the future. Imagine it, New York City in the year 2060.
Already enjoying a phenomenal career, Nora Roberts was ready for a new writing challenge, and a pseudonym offered her a perfect opportunity. Her first futuristic suspense under the name J.D. Robb, Naked in Death, was published in 1995, and readers were immediately drawn to Eve Dallas, a tough cop with a dark past, and her even more mysterious love interest, Rourke. The series quickly gained attention, great reviews, and devoted readers. Since the 9th book in the series, Loyalty in Death, every in-death novel has hit the New York Times bestseller list. While fans had their suspicions that their favorite romance author might be Robb, it wasn't until the 12th book in the series, Betrayal in Death, that Roberts finally revealed to her readers that she is also powerhouse suspense writer J.D. Robb. With Fantasy in Death, Nora celebrates the 30th book in this #1 best-selling series. 15 years later, it is no surprise that the New Yorker calls her America's favorite writer. There is no end in sight to her increasingly popular Eve Dallas novels.
Here's J.D. Robb telling us about Fantasy in Death, the 30th book in the series, and explaining how the In Death novels came about.
In Fantasy in Death, Eve Dallas is called in to investigate the most bizarre case of her career. In Fantasy in Death, I wanted to play a little more with, sometimes it's the more things change, the more they stay the same, that I play with in the series. And in this, I wanted to bump up a little of the technology again, the toys, play a little more with the science fiction. So I'm using hologram games and working them into to a murder, a fantasy game. And the inventor is as the victim, the inventor of this fantasy game as the victim, and who killed him. It's hollow rooms and all sorts of fun futuristic game playing that she has to investigate, which she knows nothing about that sort of technology. That's where EDD, again, the Electronic Detectives Division, and Rourke, who's probably the sexiest geek ever born. That's where they come in handy. Because so much, well, even now, so much is digital, so much is electronic. When I started in '95, it wasn't quite like that, but I figured, well, by the middle of the century, they're going to need a whole division of cops that are cyber trained and not only investigating cyber crimes, but for the forensics of electronics and digital. Depending on the storyline of the book, I will do research into certain technologies. I did a book called Creation in Death that was about human cloning. So, even though we hopefully aren't doing that now, I needed to research a lot of the technology on cloning, or the speculation. A lot of the In Death series is speculative fiction, but you have to be able to speculate with a foundation. So I did a lot of research on cloning for that particular book. One was about organ transplants and stealing organs from, you have to kill them to get them. So how that all works, and how they make how they might make non-human organs. The name Eve Dallas came from the social worker who she was found at 8 years old. She'd been raped and beaten and couldn't remember who she was or where she was from, and they named her Eve, first woman, and she was found in Dallas. So that was Eve Dallas. Eve Dallas she's a tough, kick-ass homicide lieutenant. When the series starts, I think it's 2058. So I could play with all that technology and basically make things up. But she's got a dark past. She's a difficult woman. She was very much a loner when the series began. And then she meets Rourke, and he's actually a suspect in the first murder and Naked in Death, the first in the series. I wanted to do an evolution of character and relationship, and then eventually marriage, and explore marriage. So we see her grow and change over the course of the series, because when you're doing an open-ended series like this, you don't want a character to be stagnant. She's very much a cop. That's what defines her. Standing for the victim and the dead. That's what she does. Rourke is an Irish billionaire, former criminal, shady, dark side, who she encounters in the first book, or I should say they encounter each other. He grew up in the alleys of Dublin. His father was abusive, and he had to make his own way, and a lot of the ways he got what he needed was to steal. He is a really good thief. What he wanted to do was be successful and to make something of himself. So by the time they meet, he's done that. But he still has a finger in a few pies because it's fun, and it's a habit. So they change each other, the cop and the criminal, over the course of the series.